Hello and welcome to the Art Teach podcast. Today I'm here with artist
Marjan Wouda.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background as an artist and where you're from?
Okay. Well, I was born in Holland, a family dairy farm, and I came to England when I was 19, and after some years of work, I went to art college here. So I'm a little bit, I think of myself as a Dutch person, but possibly a British artist.
Yes, I think so. I think you've got your stripes, definitely.
So I went to do a foundation course, visual arts course at what was then Manchester Polytechnic. I went to London, to Northeast London Polytechnic to do my fine art degree, specialising in sculpture. And I finally did an MA back at Manchester Poly in sort of fine art stroke sculpture.
How did you find England at the time, where you'd come from? Did you adapt easily?
Yes, I suppose. I mean, the first thing was that I managed the language, even, badly at first. I kind of felt I felt able to do things here. It was just about a level that I could manage to do interesting things. I found it to be really open in that, in terms of doing voluntary work, it was fabulous. I could just muck in, get in, do really challenging work, have the pressure of having to do formal kind of academic qualifications for it or anything like that. So I found it to be sort of a place where, you could have a go and experience different things. So yes, and in terms of art college, it's been fabulous again. I mean, at first I thought I must go to Holland to go to art college, but changed my mind later, and I'm so glad I did because, again, I think, I've had a fabulous education here, and I've really, really enjoyed art school and so on.
Can you tell us a little bit about Art Teach's project at the moment?
So the King of the Cats, basically we are a group of artists, and we are all based in Lancashire. The reason we've come together is because we felt we wanted to help each other a little bit to promote working in schools, and it was mostly because there wasn't any kind of such organisation in Lancashire. So that's how we got together. And the other thing that we feel quite strongly about as a group is that we practice our own different art forms as well as working in schools. So it's not that we just do whatever the schools ask. It is very much that we come with our ongoing sort of practice, do the work in schools alongside that. Why don't we look at sort of stories that are, particularly stories that are born out of very specific places in Lancashire, so landscape or whatever. And we also thought it would be good to link into schools to get kids excited about literacy through maybe ghost stories or things, that happen sort of on their doorstep. And there was one story, and which we really liked, which is called The King of the Cats, and we've taken that as a title for our project, just because it's kind of an intriguing title, and it rolls off the tongue so easily, and we thought that will make people at least curious when they read or hear that phrase. So that's King of the Cats. So we're 4 visual artists working together with a storyteller, Jacqueline Harris, and we each work in quite different media and looking at these stories and picking ones that we find the most inspiring and doing quite different artwork in response to that. And that's basically the exhibition that's touring around venues, museums, and so on in Lancashire.
I like the idea of the different stories and the different places and that connection there with the place. So can you tell us a little bit about your work and what you do and what mediums you work in?
Generally, I make a lot of animals, I have to say. Not to the exclusion of people, but that has sort of become kind of a little bit my subject area. Or even though, in a way, they deal more about people than they do about the animals themselves. And I work in clay, and cast in bronze quite often, sometimes in wax, sometimes also in sheet metal and welded metal and so on. So anyway, so with these stories, I decided to actually work quite small, and the reason is, actually one reason is that a lot of the animals in these stories are actually huge. They are giant, scary, monstrous dogs or hares or whatever, or cats as well. So I thought, well, it's going to be quite difficult and quite expensive to make these really large-scale animals. So what I wanted to do is actually make little kind of like dioramas or peat boxes, and then I can kind of make the animals really quite small, but give a sense of a scale being huge. For example, there's a cat in the story, one of the stories, and the cat is huge, and it moves a church, and so the idea, that you can make a cat and then a church, and if you make the church small enough in relation to the cat becomes huge. So quite small sculptures, almost all animals, and the idea is to make a series of peat boxes that are also kind of interactive a little bit, so that just to, I like the idea that in a story, your story is so much what your own imagination does with it, isn't it? So I kind of quite like that sort of private experience of somebody looking at art, and in a peat box you have your own little world, and so I thought it would be fun to sort of create some little worlds that people can also maybe interact with the sculptures a bit more than they might normally do. So some of them can turn, or some of them will move up and down, and that kind of thing. A little bit sort of Victorian in feel.
Yeah, I really like the idea of that, and I agree with you as well. It's that kind of private view. Your imagination creates its own story as well. So there's almost like a story within a story there as well. I really love the titles of your work. Just for the listeners, I'll reveal them if that's okay. So then there's the spectral cat, and then there's the picture mistaken for the goose, and eagle and child. They're very unusual titles of stories. I love it. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those?
Okay, so the one of the goose and the picture. This one is from a village called Crank. It's a story of an old lady who is suspected of stealing milk because the villagers find that their cows aren't giving their usual amount, and how come, and has somebody gone and with a bucket and helped themselves. So there's this old woman who goes out every morning for a walk in the fields, followed by her goose, and sort of comes back followed by this goose a little while later. And until one day, so the villagers, they suspect her, but they can't work out, where she's hiding the milk. So then one day, one person takes a brick and throws a brick or a stone at the goose, and instantly the goose kind of shatters, and it turns out that sort of on impact it turned into a pitcher. So and the milk is flowing out of it. So the idea is that the woman, a little bit witch-like, has magically transformed her pitcher into a goose in order to be able to take the milk without being caught. So that's the story, and I love the idea of the shape of the goose and the shape of a pitcher. I love geese, and I think every goose is a living, walking sculpture as far as I'm concerned. So I ended up with a curious kind of goose that has a neck that is a bit like the handle of a jug, and where it's sort of bent down and looking towards its belly, if you like. And that's the sculpture, and it's kind of I'm kind of excited about this, because without this story I would never have come up with this sculpture, and and I like it because it's so unusual, and it's kind of curious, and you kind of think, what's going on there, and this is what I I'm always searching for, in a sense, to kind of find kind of sculptures that kind of tell stories, or at least are sort of curious and strange and especially new in some way.
I love it. I love the idea of creating stories within your work. It gives the viewer as well not only something beautiful and curious to look at, it makes the mind work as well, which I think art anyway does make the mind work, obviously, but it gives that extra, and I think that's always nice. And the Kin of the Cats has unlocked some new inspiration for you, which is really challenging and good, and it's sending you in a good direction. So how have you found the process with that?
Yes, you're absolutely right, and I've found it really inspiring and really fun. It's really also kind of made me relate to, or rather just be more aware of where I live in Lancashire, and I find that every time I go out and I'm traveling or I'm just cycling or running or whatever, I'm so aware of this incredible landscape that is so atmospheric, really, but above everything else, so kind of at times bleak. That combination of those kind of stories that just give new ideas, and also what's so nice is at first you read the story and you kind of not so sure, but if you kind of spend a bit longer with it, explore it further, then all kinds of it is like an adventure, and new things spring up, and yes, definitely very inspiring material. And of course I'm interested especially in as I said, in animals, but also in especially how people relate to animals and how we kind of imbue them with power, and why that might be, and so on. So I think, I like the idea of sort of going back in time, where people have perhaps different relationships with the animal.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again as we go through this journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fiona.
If you would like to know more about the Kin of the Cats, go to www.thekinofthecats.wordpress.com. The Kin of the Cats is touring all around Lancashire. All the tour details can be found on the website, including venues and times. Thank you for listening. We look forward to seeing you there.